Hey there guys, and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be answering the question of just what it takes to build the Golden Throne. I put a call out on Instagram earlier this week for you guys to ask me any questions that you want answered about the diorama and how the project is going. And boy did you guys not disappoint. So I've gathered up all your questions, and what I'm going to do in this video is go through and answer some of the most popular ones. I'll have some footage of the building process playing in the background to give you guys something to look at. Alright, let's get stuck in. So our first question comes from Micah Horitz 560, and he asks, is there any Easter eggs? So as of yet there's no Easter eggs, but I'm thinking when I start to paint miniatures and add them, I'll probably put a few here and there. Two of the Easter eggs that I definitely like to add are a Trazen somewhere in the build, and possibly Genestealer Cult. I mean, we know the Genestealer Cult get everywhere, so it's kind of unsurprising that they might end up in the palace. One of the advantages to the diorama being absolutely huge is I'll be able to hide some of those little Easter eggs around without them being too obvious. I'll probably limit what I do put in the build, as even though I've had some really good ideas for what I can include, I don't want the build to centre too much around Easter eggs. But rest assured, I don't think you'll be too disappointed with what I end up putting in. Our second question, by Peaches is a dog's name, how many psychers were sacrificed during its construction? As of yet, absolutely no psychers have been sacrificed, although I'm sure that is due to change soon. The only thing that has been sacrificed is my sanity when I look at how much I'm going to have to paint. So next we're going to answer a popular question that I do get asked quite a lot. Courtesy of Highest Disc, how much have you spent on the project so far, and how much do you think it'll cost to finish? So this might be a bit of a throwaway answer, but I'm not exactly sure how much I've spent on the project so far. If I was to take a guess, I'd say it's probably over £1,000 at the moment. I've also been extremely lucky as I have an amazing little group of Patreon supporters who help towards the construction of the project. I've also had some awesome people over on Instagram who've donated pieces over the years. This has been absolutely instrumental in getting the build to where it is today. I can't say how much it's going to cost to finish the project, as I really don't know at this stage. What I can say to sort of round this question off is that most of my hobby funds go towards this project. Whereas some hobbyist funds will go towards armies or miniatures over the course of a year, mine will go into pieces and glue and other materials that I need to get the build finished. I know this isn't an exact number of how much it's cost so far, but hopefully this gives you guys an idea. Alright, moving on. JGem99 asks, will you add any legions parading / guarding at the base? So although the diorama is going to feature a lot of custodies, I don't think it's going to feature that many space marines. Even though space marines are awesome and the idea of them standing in formation would look pretty cool, I don't think it's going to be suitable for this project. In the lore it's about 300 of the custodies as the Emperor's companions, so I think I'm going to try and aim for that amount. It might be a little bit ambitious and I might need some help painting, but I feel like it's more suitable than loads of space marines. On top of this, there are going to be other miniatures in the throne room who aren't custodies, so there's going to be a tech priest, there's probably going to be some servitors, and maybe some other imperial agents of some kind. Longshanks 1690 asks, will a figure of the Emperor be sitting in it when the project is done? The answer to that is absolutely yes. One of the most divisive things about my first Emperor of Mankind diorama was his size. In this first project, I designed my Emperor of Mankind to be the size of a normal human. I'd done this to show that underneath all the psychic projection, that's what he really is. I feel like this also helped lend weight to just how weak the Emperor is now compared to his former self after his battle with Horus, and merely a skeleton covered with robes and machinery. I feel like depictions of the Emperor can be interpreted in many ways due to the lore of 40k itself. That being the case, we're going for a different angle with this new build, and we'll be making the Emperor more Primarch sized. My plan that I might have discussed before is to use Guilliman as a base for the Emperor. From there I'm going to use a bunch of green stuff and model some robes on him. We probably won't end up even using too much of the Primarch model itself, as a lot of it is going to be disguised under robes and machinery, tubes, cables, all that sort of stuff. Our next question comes from Scudmark. Are you using strictly Games Workshop terrain pieces / features? The answer to this one is 90% yes. The main bulk of the diorama is made up from Games Workshop bits and pieces. Though included in this I do have a few unique and individual pieces made up by other hobbyists whose work I'm fond of. I think this question kind of leans into 3D printing as well. Since I don't have access to a 3D printer, I use a lot of genuine Games Workshop pieces. Occasionally I get asked why I don't invest in a 3D printer and print off the pieces I need. For me it's because 3D printing is a whole nother hobby in itself that I'd have to learn. At the moment I just don't have the time investment to dedicate to that. Maybe in the future that'll change, but for now we're using genuine pieces. Force Build Masters asks, will the diorama be purely for display, or do you plan to play a few games on it? This might come as a bit of a shock to some of you, but I don't play 40k. I don't actually play any tabletop games. My main attraction to the hobby has mainly been painting, kit bashing, and a lot of the lore elements. This isn't to say that the table won't eventually see a few battles. What I plan to do is maybe work with some YouTubers who specialise in battle reports to bring you guys something interesting. I'd do it myself, but even if I did manage to learn the rules for 40k, I'm not sure you guys would want to see me bumble through a tabletop battle. That being the case, we'll try and find some professionals to bring in. So once a few games have been played on the board, I'll probably just use it as a diorama mainly. That and a very fancy backdrop for any new miniatures that I paint. MW McFadden says, "No question, just wanted to say it's effing rad." Well, thank you very much. Hopefully I can do it justice by the time we finish it, so you guys have something interesting to look at. The Duty Casuals asks, "What gave you the inspiration to start such a huge project?" I probably mentioned this in a few of my previous videos, but the main thing that attracted me to build this was the art of Neil Roberts. The artwork that he produced for The End and the Death Volume 1 was phenomenal. It really goes to show the scale and the grandeur of the throne room, and upon seeing that artwork I just had to have a go at bringing it to life. My interpretation is a little bit different, as what I've done is taken Neil Roberts' artwork and used it as a basis for what the Golden Throne would look like in the 41st millennium. I wanted to show what 10,000 years of stagnation had looked like, and just how much superstition and ignorance had affected the throne room. Essentially, this piece of artwork was released just as I'd finished the first diorama, so you will have Neil Roberts to thank for that. Solace Galactic Forge asks, "How many spray cans of gold have you used?" I think so far for the main portion of the build we've used about 15 cans of spray. It's been a bit of a mix between Retributor armour and Colourforge's Gauntlet Gold. I exclusively go with Gauntlet Gold now as it's more cost effective and you get more in the can. We're probably going to end up using that same amount again just for the wall sections that we've added to the diorama. These new wall sections are still under construction, but they're going to feature pretty heavily in our next update video. Jack's Mini Painting asks, "Will you paint it with a sponge?" This is a somewhat topical subject at the moment. The answer is yes, I probably will be using a sponge, but I won't need a tool for it. I will just use a cheap sponge from the pound shop. Now quickly onto something less controversial. Max Does Cosplay asks, "How are you able to stick to one project at a time for so long?" Well Max, if I'm honest, I think there's something wrong with me. In truth, I'm actually really enjoying this project. Even though it does consume all of my hobby time, it's nice to sit down and focus on different parts of the build. This does not mean from time to time that I'm not tempted to drop everything and start something completely new. I feel that a lot of people are also quite invested in this project, so I'd like to do my best to make sure I can do it justice. The encouragement to follow it through also comes from completing certain areas of the build. As I manage to see it all come together, it really spurs me on to get it finished. William X Thunderpone asks, "When it's finished, will you keep it?" I think once it's done I'm going to end up keeping it. I'm not sure what else to do with it, to be fair, and most of the time I don't actually think that far ahead. A lot of my hobbying consists of create something now, ask questions later. For the time being I think we're going to have to leave this one as an unanswered question. For this next question, Joseph Harris asks, "Is the project moving faster or slower than you expected?" It's kind of hard to answer this one, but if I had to lean towards one choice, it would probably be slower than expected. I knew that the project was going to take a lot longer than my first diorama, but I've made a bit of a rod for my own back, as the project has progressed, I've added a lot of bits here and there. Even though the project is moving slower than I think I expected, I'm enjoying every part of it. I don't put a lot of pressure on myself when it comes to time constraints for the project, so I think this has helped a lot as well. At the end of the day, it boils down to when it's done sort of thing. Alright, so that about wraps us up on all the most popular questions. I'm sorry if I didn't end up getting to every question, but I might do another one of these further down the line if you guys want. I'd like to round off by thanking everyone for their tremendous support. If you enjoyed the video, consider liking and subscribing. I post regular updates on my social media pages, which I'll link down below. If you want to help support the project, I'll also put a link to my Patreon in the description. And finally, if you want to help get this video out there, consider commenting to appease the algorithm. Thank you very much for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.